So I'm going to show you how to make this easy beanie. It's a really simple beanie pattern because there's no ribbing and it's knitted in the round, so you just knit every round, and then to finish there's some decreases at the top. It's also a really fast knit because it's quite chunky. It's knitted on 7mm needles, so you'll need a pair of circular 7mm needles with a 40 to 50cm cord. If you don't have any 7mm needles, you could maybe try 6.5 as well. I think that would probably work. For the yarn, you need around 70 meters of yarn to finish the hat. So for the one I'm making and the one I'm wearing, I used 2 strands of Aran weight yarn held together. So I used 2 balls of this. This is Fonty Tartan 6, and this has 70 meters per 50 grams. So I just used 2 balls of this held together. There's some similar yarns like Drops Alaska is quite a similar weight. That also has 70 meters, and this is a really great ball. This is Kremke Sole Wool, the Merino 70 I think it's called, which is super soft. That's also really nice. There's also some different options you can use. So this is 2 strands of Aran weight held together. I also made one using just 1 strand of chunky weight yarn held together. This yarn is Quince&Co Puffin. Sorry, again, all these yarns I've used have been sitting in my stash for quite a while, so everything's looking like not very neat, but this is 102 meters per 100 grams. Another alternative, I used quite a few different thinner yarns held together to create this like really lovely kind of mild effect. To do that, I used like I'll show you what I used. It's like, I think the equivalent of maybe 3 DK weight yarns and 2 fingering weight yarns, something like that. If you want to make a tension swatch before you start, just to check, you're looking for about 12 to 13 stitches per 10 centimeters and maybe about 17 rounds, but it's not like a lot of the hat is done just to a measurement, so if your rounds are off, it's not really the end of the world. And just a quick note on sizing, this hat is kind of designed to fit about 53 centimeters to 58 centimeter head circumference. My head I think is 56 or 55, 56 centimeters. There's also just like a lot of stretch in the beanie because it's just stocking stitch. So you can see that it would fit quite a wide range of heads. That being said, if you want to like adapt this pattern to different yarns or different head sizes, all you have to do is cast on like a different multiple of 8. I think that's everything actually. I'll start the tutorial. Some other tools that you might need are a tape measure and a stitch marker, a blunt tapestry needle for sewing in the ends and finishing up, and scissors. The first step is to cast on 56 stitches using the long tail cast on technique. So to do this, what you need to do is have your working yarn. So I'm using 2 strands of Aran weight yarn for this beanie, which you can see here. So I'm using 2 balls of this, and I'm going to put this on my right hand side, and then what you're going to do is create a yarn tail. So what I'm going to do is measure 200 to 210 centimeter yarn tail on this side. So you can see I've measured that, and it's like this much yarn. Not that that's helpful at all, but 200 to 210 centimeters of yarn for a yarn tail. And then what you're going to do is take your needle and you're going to just place the yarn over the needle like this. And then you're going to take your left hand and you're going to insert it into the yarn like this. So this is the kind of stance you need. On the left hand side is your 200 to 210 centimeter yarn tail, and on the right hand side is your working yarn attached to the balls. So insert your hands like this into the yarn and get kind of comfy with this position. And then what we're going to do is just rotate. So you can see it's kind of like a Z shape. And you're going to take the needle under this front strand here, so like this, and then over this strand here at the back, like this. And then you're going to bring it through this loop that you've created here. So I'm going to bring that through and then pull on the yarn to tighten it up. So you can see we've got 2 stitches now, which is great. So I'm going to show you that again. I know if you're a beginner that must look completely crazy. This isn't a very easy cast on technique, I must admit, but it's also a very stretchy cast on technique, which is great for beanies. So again, we're just going to put our hands into the yarn like this. So I'm kind of gripping the yarn with my 3 fingers there and having it in this kind of shape at the top, and you kind of just want to get used to that position. And then you're going to twist the yarn to get that Z shape, and then take the needle under the front and over the back, and then through this loop you've created here to create another stitch, and then just let go and pull it all together. And you can see you've cast on another stitch. So again, get in that position, twist it into the Z shape, under the front one, over the back, and through this loop. So you need to do this until you have 56 stitches on the needle. We're now going to join to work in the round. So to do this, if you take your needles and pull the stitches so they're kind of at the tip of both of the needles like this. Now you don't want the stitches to be twisted. So as you can see here, you've got like a twist going on here. It should look like this. So the smooth side of the cast on facing upwards. And I'm just going to twist that around to match. So now you can see it's the smooth kind of neat side of the cast on all the way around. And that's how it should be looking. If you have a twist in it, then it will twist the whole of the hem, which will be a little bit strange and difficult to work with. So you definitely want no twists. So double check that before you start. And then pick up the needles, holding them like this in your hands. And then you're going to pull the stitches on the left-hand needle a bit further down. And we're just at this point going to place a stitch marker on the right-hand needle. And this signifies the start of the round and the end of the round. So you're going to take your right needle now and insert it into that first stitch, like so. And to join the round, there's loads of different ways of doing this, but for this video, I'm just going to take all my strands, so the yarn tail as well as the yarn attached to my ball, and I'm going to knit the stitch with all of it. So to do that, I'm going to wrap the yarn around the right needle and pull it through the stitch and out like that, and then off the left-hand needle. So now you've knitted one stitch, you're going to knit every single stitch in the round. So you're going to knit all the way around until you get to the round marker, which you placed here. So you just keep going, so insert the right needle into the first stitch, like that. Take the yarn attached to the balls, not the yarn tail, so you can definitely make sure you're not knitting with that anymore. And so just the yarn attached to the balls, and wrap it round the right needle and pull it through the stitch and then off the needle. So you can see it's transferred from left to right and it's been worked. So insert the stitch into the front, insert the needle, sorry, into the front of the stitch like that. Wrap the yarn around the needle, pull it through and off the needle. And then you can just continue to knit every stitch in the round. When you reach the end of the round, I'm just knitting the last stitch now, then you need to transfer the stitch marker onto the right needle. So just slip it to the right needle and then continue knitting. So knit that first stitch and then you just continue knitting every stitch of every round. And you're aiming for 16 to 17 centimeters of knitting. When you think you've done enough rounds to measure your beanie, you take your tape measure and place it at the top of the stitch here. I would measure like near the wire or where the stitch hasn't been warped or pulled or anything. And you're going to measure it with the bottom unrolled. So stocking stitch, which is what we've been doing, naturally rolls up like this. So we want to just like unroll it for the sake of measuring. And then I'm going to place at the top of the stitch there and then measure all the way down. And I'm at about 16.5, which I'm happy with. So I'd recommend going 16 to 17 centimeters. If you want more slouch at the top of the beanie, like if you want it to be longer, you can add a few more centimeters, or if you want it to be tighter to the head, you can take a few centimeters off. It will still work. But now we're at the point I want to be to start the decreases. So I'm just going to finish my last 2 stitches and then slip the round marker. And then the instructions for this round are going to be knit 6, knit 2 together. So going to knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then knit 2 together will decrease, so you'll be making 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So to do that, you just take your right needle as if you're to knit it. So just like you've been knitting 1, you're going to knit 2 together. So go in the front one first and then that one. So sorry, not the front one, the second one on the stitch, I'm getting my words tangled. The second one on the needle, you go into first and then the first one on the needle. So like that. So you're going through both stitches, both of the stitches like that, and complete a knit stitch just like you have been knitting, and off the needle, and you can see you've now decreased 2 stitches into 1. So now I'm going to knit 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then another decrease, knit 2 together. So take the needle into the second stitch, into the first stitch, wrap the needle and pull it together, knitting the stitches together. And you're just going to repeat that until the end of the round. So I'm just on my last repeat. Knitting the last 2 stitches together, slip the round marker, and then the next round you're going to knit all stitches. So there's no decreases on this round, you're just going to knit every stitch. So I've just finished the knit round, and then the next round is going to be knit 5, knit 2 together. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then decrease. So as before, knit 2 together and then repeat that around the whole round. And it's really important that you count correctly otherwise the decreases will kind of go off course and it won't look as neat. So now the next round is knit all stitches, so just one round of knit. Now we're going to work a decrease round, so we're going to knit 4, knit 2 together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then knit 2 together. You'll probably notice the pattern now of the kind of decrease we're following, so you kind of go down a stitch every decrease row. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and knit 2 together. And you'll probably find that it's getting a little bit trickier to work, like you naturally end up kind of with a bit of wire out somewhere as the stitches start decreasing. I think it's fine to work like this for a bit, and then it's easier to change to kind of a different method of holding your needles, which I'll show you when we get there. For the next round, we're going to knit all the stitches. So you can find if you're starting to work a bit more like this naturally and you have this happening, you can just pull the needle out and reshuffle around and kind of pull it out another way like that, and just keep knitting this round. So the next round is a decrease round, so you're going to knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and knit 2 together and repeat. Now this is going to get quite tricky to work, so the best way to do it is to actually move out this back needle and pull out the wire here. So this is called working in the, it's kind of using your needles to work the magic loop method of working. Couldn't get my words out then. So you end up with the stitches like this with the wire there, and then also this back needle out like this. So you can see that's kind of how it looks. So how you're going to work now is you're just going to take this needle, insert it into the first stitch, and just make sure you pull this first stitch quite tight, and then continue knitting. Actually, I was on knit 2 together, sorry. Knit 2 together, and then just pull that tight to make sure there's no gap, and then you can just continue working. 1, 2, 3, knit 2 together, 1, 2, 3, knit 2 together, and then just remember you've knitted 1, 2, so I've got one more left to knit, and then knit 2 together. And then you can move your needles again, so that right hand needle sits at the back like that, pull it out, and then naturally pull out this front one, so the wire comes out on the left hand side like that, and then you're ready to start again. So you can work on these stitches now by pulling this needle out, inserting it into the first stitch, and making sure you pull that one really tight. And you can just continue to work like that. And then the next round you knit all stitches, so knit all stitches, while using this method of working. Sometimes it can be a bit tight on the stitches. There we go. And just knit the rest of the round. So the next round is a decrease round, so we're going to do knit 2, knit 2 together, knit 2, knit 2 together, and then the next round is a knit round, so knit all of the stitches. And then the next round, we're going to decrease, we're going to knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together. So for the very final round, we're just going to knit 2 together and repeat that. So knit 2 together, knit 2 together, very final decrease. Okay, so now you can take the stitch marker off, and you can see these are our final stitches. So I have 7 stitches left. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a yarn tail of about 15 to 20 centimeters. So the working yarn has been cut, and now what I'm going to do is thread the yarn through my tapestry needle like so. And then to close this top of the hat, which is this little hole, what we're going to do is I'm going to pull the stitches so they sit like this. So your working yarn is attached to this stitch, okay? But you want to go through this stitch first, which is the very first stitch of the round. So I'm just going to take the needle and place it through the stitch like this, and then slip it off the needle onto the sewing needle. And you can pull it along and you can see that it's kind of tightening up a little bit. So that's the idea basically. So you just do that for every stitch. So go through the stitches with your tapestry needle, pull the yarn through, and then just turn it round and do the same. So you're working in a circle with the tapestry needle through each stitch. So effectively the yarn has gone through all the stitches. Ooh. Okay, that wasn't the closed moment that I was hoping for. But my yarn tail has got a little bit stuck in there, but I think that's fine. There we go. So you can see, there you go, that's a better view. You can see that I've taken my yarn around and out, and then now you can just pull it to close. And what I like to do to secure it a little bit more is just take the needle and thread it through a few more stitches to get it pulled nice and tight. And then you can just take it down the middle and pull that down. So like you've got this at the top, and then you can go to the inside, and depending how you want to, some people just leave their ends. I would maybe secure it a little bit. So to secure the end, what you can do is just mimic the stitches which you've got here. So you can just take your needle under a few stitches. So you can see there's one going like this. So I'm just gonna find that, pull it under, and pull it under that stitch there. And if you do that a few times, then it makes it pretty secure. That's the same with any other yarn ends. Like I was using random ends of yarns that I had in this yarn. So you can see I have a few left to weave in, but you might not have any, which is the dream, apart from this top one, of course. So then once you've woven it in a few times, you can just cut it. You can cut it actually a lot shorter. I've just not woven it in that much, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And then you can see this is how the beanie has formed, and you'll have one more end to sew in, definitely, which is this end here. So you can again thread your needle with the ends like that, and then you can just kind of mimic the stitches and the way they are. So what I like to do is maybe just go one stitch down and pull it through like that. And you can see that kind of brings it together a little bit like that, and then just pull it together a little bit more. And you can see it kind of makes this edge, which is fine, and actually you're not really going to see this that much because it's going to be rolled up quite a lot. So you might just want to be careful of how you finish the ends here, so you can't really see them. But again, I'm just going to do what I did before and mimic the stitches, just sewing it into here. And not pulling too tightly. So now you can just trim that edge, and your hat is ready to be worn.